If you're new here, welcome. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay until the end, because sometimes the quietest moments hide the loudest truths. They say marriages don't end in storms. They end in silence, soft, invisible, and slow. You don't notice it at first. Not when he forgets to kiss you goodnight. Not when dinners become wordless routines. Not when your conversations shrink to reminders. Did you pay the bill? I'll be home late. Don't wait up. No, it doesn't break all at once. It fades. That's what had happened to us. We weren't fighting anymore, and somehow that was worse. Our house had the kind of calm that looked perfect on the outside. Muted lights, polished floors, a scent of lavender candles I kept lighting just to fill the air with something. He still sat across from me at dinner. Still asked how my day was. Still smiled when neighbors waved at us. But the distance between us wasn't measured in steps anymore. It was something deeper. Like two souls standing in the same room, looking through each other. I had stopped trying to fix it months ago. You can't mend silence when it becomes a language of its own. So I told myself we were fine. That this was what long marriages became, soft, still, steady. Until that night. It was late, past midnight. Rain whispered against the windows, soft but steady. Like it had something to say if I listened closely enough. I couldn't sleep. I rarely could anymore. Beside me he lay still, breathing evenly. The glow from the streetlight outside painted faint gold lines across his face. I turned toward him. His features were calm. Peaceful in a way that felt distant, unreachable. I almost envied his ability to rest while my thoughts kept circling like restless birds. And then I heard it. A whisper. So faint I almost thought I'd imagined it. He murmured something again, this time clearer. A single word. A name. My name. But not the way he said it. Not like someone calling to the person next to them. It was softer, trembling, almost breaking apart mid-breath. Like a prayer or a plea. For a second I froze. My heartbeat quickened. Then he said it again. My name, but wrapped in sorrow. And before I could make sense of it, another name followed. One I didn't recognize. A woman's name. The air left my lungs in an instant. I sat up in bed, my fingers gripping the sheets. He stirred slightly, turned his head, but didn't wake. He just kept whispering, fragments, sighs, and that name again, like a confession spoken into dreams. I stared at him, my husband, and felt something twist inside me. A part of me wanted to wake him. Another part wanted to listen, to understand, to confirm what my mind was already screaming. Who was she? I got out of bed quietly, my bare feet meeting the cold floor. The rain outside had grown heavier, as if mirroring the storm inside me. I stood by the window for a long time just listening, not to the rain but to the echo of that name. The name that didn't belong in our house. When morning came I acted normal. I made breakfast. He smiled, tired, still half asleep, unaware that something inside me had shifted overnight. I studied him, the casualness, the ease, like someone searching for cracks in a glass that already has one invisible fracture. He didn't mention any dreams. Didn't notice how I couldn't look him in the eye. Didn't feel the silence that had thickened between us overnight. For days I said nothing. I told myself not to make assumptions. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a name from a movie. A coworker. A random thought. But the way he said it, soft, broken, almost holy. It didn't sound like a stranger's name. It sounded like love. Or loss. And that's when I started noticing things. The way he'd linger on old photos but never comment. The way he'd pause in the hallway outside the spare room, the one we never used anymore. The way his hand sometimes hovered over my shoulder before pulling back, as if touching me reminded him of something painful. The house began to feel different after that night. Not haunted exactly, but aware. Every creak, every sigh of the wind, felt like it carried a secret. I tried to distract myself. Cleaned, worked, called friends, scrolled endlessly through social media. But in every reflection, in every pause, I kept seeing his face as he slept, peaceful, unaware, whispering another woman's name like it meant something sacred. By the third week I couldn't bear it anymore. I had to know. That evening he came home late again. He apologized, said there was traffic, deadlines, the usual. But when he hugged me it felt mechanical. No warmth, no connection. We ate in silence. The clinking of cutlery filled the room like an accusation. And finally I asked, "Who's Anna?" He froze. For a second I thought he didn't hear me. Then his fork slipped from his hand, landing with a dull clatter against the plate. "What did you say?" he whispered. "Anna," I repeated, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound calm. "You said that name in your sleep. More than once." He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted to the side, then back to me. And in that pause, that long trembling pause, I saw guilt flicker across his face. Or was it pain? He swallowed hard. "You must have misheard." "No," I said. "I didn't." He ran a hand through his hair, the kind of gesture he did when words failed him. Then he said quietly, "It's nothing. Please just forget it. Forget it." 2 words that hit harder than any confession. Because when someone asks you to forget, it means there is something to remember. That night, I didn't sleep beside him. I went to the spare room, the one he always avoided. The air felt cold, untouched, still carrying the faint scent of dust and time. I turned on the lamp. There on the shelf was a box I hadn't seen in years. A small wooden one tucked behind old photo albums. I don't know what made me open it. Curiosity? Fear? A need to prove myself wrong? Inside were letters, cards, and at the bottom an old ultrasound picture. My breath caught. The date on it 7 years ago. And beneath the faded image in his handwriting were 2 words. "For Anna." My knees gave out before I could stop them. The memory hit like a wave, cold, sharp, unrelenting. Anna. The name we'd chosen for the baby we never had. The miscarriage had happened early. Too early for names, too early for lullabies, too early for goodbyes. We never spoke about it again. Not once. It had been easier to pretend it never happened, to bury it under work, routine, and silence. He'd said we'd try again. I'd said I needed time. And then somehow years passed and we just didn't. Now, staring at that ultrasound, I realized the name he whispered in his sleep wasn't another woman's. It was hers. Our daughter's. The one we never got to hold. The name had never been spoken aloud since that day in the hospital. I'd locked it away. He apparently had carried it in his dreams. I closed the box gently, tears blurring my vision. For the first time in years, the silence around me didn't feel cold. It felt full. Heavy with memory, with grief, with all the words we'd refused to say. Down the hall, I could hear him moving restlessly in our room. Maybe he was dreaming again. Maybe whispering her name again. And for the first time I didn't feel betrayed. I felt something else. Something like understanding. But also something fragile. The beginning of a realization that healing might come. Not from silence but from breaking it. I turned off the lamp, sat in the dim light, and whispered her name myself. Anna. It sounded strange on my tongue. Like saying goodbye and hello at the same time. And that's when I knew tomorrow I would finally talk to him. Not about the betrayal I imagined, but about the grief we never allowed ourselves to feel. Morning light crawled through the blinds, slow and pale. The rain had stopped, leaving the world wrapped in a kind of heavy stillness, the kind that comes after a storm, when even the air seems unsure what to do next. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of untouched coffee. The house was quiet, but not the familiar quiet I'd grown used to. This one felt expectant. Like the walls themselves knew something was about to happen. He came downstairs eventually, hair still damp from the shower, shirt half-buttoned. His eyes flicked toward me, then away. "Morning," he said softly. I didn't answer. Not right away. I was still holding the box, the wooden one with the ultrasound. I'd left it on the table between us like evidence at a trial neither of us had prepared for. When he saw it, he stopped mid-step. All the color drained from his face. "Where did you?" "In the spare room," I interrupted. "Behind the photos." His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. He just stood there, frozen, the air between us trembling with things unsaid. "I found it last night," I said quietly. "After I heard you say her name again." The silence that followed wasn't the kind that destroyed. It was the kind that waited. Raw, alive, demanding honesty. Finally, he pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, his hands trembling slightly. His eyes flicked to the box again, then to me. "I didn't mean for you to find that," he whispered. "I know. I wasn't hiding it from you," he said quickly. "Not really. I didn't know what to do with it." He looked so small in that moment. Not the man who'd once carried me through laughter and promises. Not the man who built our life brick by brick, but someone fragile, someone haunted. You said her name in your sleep, I told him. You said Anna. He nodded slowly. His throat worked as he swallowed hard. I know, he said. Sometimes I dream of her. Not as she was, not as a baby, but as if she'd grown up. As if she were real. My eyes stung. I gripped the edge of the table to stop my hands from shaking. What does she look like? I asked before I could stop myself. He hesitated, then gave a small, trembling smile. She looks like you. That was it. The words cracked something open inside me. For 7 years I had built a wall inside myself, brick by brick, excuse by excuse, just to survive the loss I never allowed myself to mourn. I'd convinced myself that forgetting was strength, that silence was healing. But sitting there with the man I thought I'd lost, and the memory we'd both buried between us, I realized silence hadn't saved us. It had starved us. He looked down at his hands. I thought if I didn't talk about it, I could make it hurt less. That maybe you'd forget too. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. I heard her laugh. He stopped, his voice breaking. I reached across the table and took his hand. It felt cold, hesitant, like it had forgotten what this kind of touch meant. I blamed myself, I whispered. For years. For what happened. He looked up sharply. You never said that. How could I? I said. Every time I thought about it, I couldn't breathe. I thought you blamed me too. His face twisted in shock and pain. No, he said. God, no. I blamed myself. I should have been there more. I should have. His voice faltered, collapsing under the weight of what he couldn't finish. We sat there. Two people holding hands across a table that had once felt like a battlefield, now turned into an altar of memory. The air felt heavy but sacred. And then he said something I'd waited years to hear. I miss her. Just 3 words, but they broke through everything. Tears blurred my vision. I nodded. Me too. We didn't speak for a while after that. There was nothing left to say, and for the first time that silence wasn't empty. It was shared. That evening we went to the park. The one we used to walk through before the world had changed. Before hospital walls and quiet funerals we never held. The sun was setting, staining the sky with pink and gold, colors too soft for all the weight they carried. He carried the small wooden box. I carried a single white rose. We found a quiet spot under a tree, the earth damp from last night's rain. He knelt, brushed the dirt gently with his fingers and placed the box down. For a moment neither of us moved. The world around us seemed to still, the breeze pausing, the leaves holding their breath. Then I said her name. Out loud. Anna. It felt like opening a window after years of suffocating. He said it too, his voice breaking on the second syllable. Anna. And then we both cried, not in the way people cry for pain, but in the way people cry when they finally stop pretending. When the tears subsided, we sat there, leaning against each other. The air smelled of grass, rain, and something new. Something like release. I used to imagine her running through the yard, I said softly. With your smile. Always asking questions. He chuckled weakly. She'd drive me crazy, wouldn't she? She'd have you wrapped around her little finger. I smiled. Just like I used to. For a brief, fragile moment we both laughed. Felt strange. Familiar. Like remembering how to breathe after years underwater. Later that night we didn't sleep in separate rooms. He held me, gently, uncertainly, as if afraid I might vanish. His breathing was uneven, his fingers tracing small circles on my back. And then just as I began to drift off, I heard him whisper again. My girls. Not Anna. Not just me. Both of us. For the first time I didn't feel a pang of jealousy or suspicion. I felt peace. The kind that doesn't come from forgetting, but from finally remembering together. Weeks passed. The house didn't change much on the outside. Same walls, same rooms, same rhythm. But inside it felt different. Warmer. Lived in. Honest. We talked more. Not just about work or schedules, but about everything we'd once buried. Our fears, our regrets, the versions of ourselves we lost along the way. Sometimes we cried. Sometimes we just sat in silence. But now it was a silence that healed instead of hurt. He began fixing up the spare room, painted the walls a pale yellow, Put a bookshelf by the window. When I asked why, he said quietly, I think it's time we make it a place of light again. I nodded. For her. For us, he said. One night, months later, I found myself standing at the door of that same room. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint and lavender, my favorite scent. I turned off the light and stood there in the dark, listening. And for a moment, just a fleeting, gentle moment, I thought I heard laughter. Not loud, not eerie, just soft, distant, like the echo of something that had finally found its peace. Maybe it was just the wind, or maybe it was something more. Either way, I smiled. Epilogue. If you're still here, thank you. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through the people we love. In the pauses, the silences, the dreams that never fade.